The girl takes out a syringe. She decides to play a little prank. But the result turned out a disaster. Stop. The dark opening of the animation just went wild. What exactly happened here? To get to the bottom of it, we need to go back to June of 1958. Not long ago, Keiichi Mibara moved to a small village called Hinamizawa. Although it's in a remote area, life here is peaceful, and the people are simple and kind. Here, Keiichi made many friends. This soft and cute girl's name is Rina Ryugu. She waits for Keiichi every day to go to school together. The green-haired girl, Mayan, has a lively and cheerful personality. As the oldest student in the class, she serves as the class president. Others include the quiet and well-behaved Rika and the somewhat mischievous Satoko. Although they are of different ages, but they got along very well. They often played club games together. The games were diverse and unrestricted. Losers often had to accept funny punishments like drawing silly faces or wearing maid costumes. In such a cheerful atmosphere, Keiichi quickly fit in. That evening, Keiichi accompanied Rina to a garbage mountain. This is Rina's secret treasure trove. She often comes here to search for treasures. She takes home anything cute she finds. Seeing such a simple and thrifty girl, Keiichi couldn't help but admire the beauty of rural life. At that moment, a freelance photographer wearing a green hat passed by. Green Hat Brother casually asked what Reina was looking for. Keiichi made a little joke, saying she was probably looking for the household register that had been separated and then put back together. Unexpectedly, Green Hat Brother actually picked up on it. Could there have been a murder here? Keiichi took half a day to recover. After Green Hat left, Kei asked Reina about what had happened in the past. But Reina said that she had only arrived in Hinamizawa last year. She only knew that a dam had been built here before, but it's unclear exactly what happened. Right now, she just wants to bring the Colonel Sanders doll buried in the garbage mountain home. Keiichi said he would dig it out for her tomorrow. The next day, after finishing the club game, Keiichi, who had a face drawn on him, was asked about the so-called dam incident by Mayan. Mayan said it was a few years ago. The government decided to build a dam here, but the dam will flood the entire village. Although there's relocation compensation, most villagers oppose it. So the villagers united to resist. Influential people also lobbied officials. In short, it was a fierce battle. Ultimately, the dam project was cancelled, and the villagers won a complete victory. But I'm concerned about whether anyone was injured or killed at that time. As promised, Keiichi accompanied Rina to dig up the doll. But the doll was buried deep underground. Tools like axes or saws are needed to get it out. While Rina was looking for tools, Keiichi accidentally saw an old news magazine in the trash. One page prominently featured the headline, Miza Dismemberment Murder Case. The perpetrator used a cleaver and a pickaxe to brutally murder the victim, and used an axe to dismember the body into 6 pieces. One of the perpetrators is still at large. The real events and Kichiai's companion's bizarre replies made him feel a little foolish. And just then, Lena approached from behind with a cleaver. Don't panic, the cleaver is for digging up the doll. It's perfectly reasonable. Besides, it's just a past murder case, no need to be alarmed. The key is to enjoy the present moment. The village's annual Cotton Flow Festival is approaching. It's a traditional and joyful festival. Rika, a shrine maiden, will preside over the ceremony that evening. The villagers will put old cotton bedding and fluff into the river to show their gratitude. Most importantly, there will be many festival stalls in the village that day. Several companions are looking forward to competing in these small games. But Keiichi's happiness didn't last long. That evening, Keiichi encountered the freelance photographer, Midori-san, again. He was with a blonde woman. Keiichi had previously asked about Midori-san's identity. He was said to be a freelance photographer. He comes to Hinamizawa every year to photograph the seasonal scenery and wildlife. Keiichi wanted to learn more about the dismemberment case from this adult, but he received a rather strange reply, saying the dismemberment case happened 4 years ago during the Cotton Flow Festival. A supervisor at the dam construction site was murdered and dismembered. The village elders believed it was the doing of the imperial shrine god. That is, the local deity punishing those involved in the dam project. Because there was a murder every year after the Cotton Flow Festival. In 1980, a couple from the village who had supported the dam project fell to their deaths at a tourist spot. In 1981, the shrine's priest died of an unknown illness. His wife also committed suicide by jumping into a swamp that night. In 1982, a woman's body was found. She's still related to the couple who previously supported the dam. And today is the night of the Cotton Flow Festival in 1958. These murders are clearly full of mysteries. But Keiichi thought these feudal superstitions had nothing to do with him. He went to school normally the next day. During break time, a police officer named Daisher questioned Keiichi. Officer Daisher told Keiichi that Ryuko died on the night of the Cotton Flow Festival yesterday. The autopsy report showed that. Ryuko died from scratching her carotid artery with her own fingernails. The police suspect drugs were involved, but no such substance was identified. The body only showed a few external injuries and was suspected to have been subjected to violent attack. In any case, the cause of death remains a mystery. The companion Xiao Huang also disappeared without a trace. As for why Daisher is looking for Keiichi, it's because he met with Ryuko last night. Secondly, the villagers will surely think this is the work of the village god. Daisher needs someone non-superstitious to help solve the case. Finally, Daisher gave Keiichi his business card. He stressed the importance of keeping their conversation secret, especially from Mayan of the Furid family, because currently, all the villagers are suspects. He doesn't want the details leaked. It's suddenly involved in a murder case. Keiichi was so scared he couldn't sleep all night. While he was dozing off in class, he overheard Mayan and Rina whispering. The conversation included malice, disappearance, and the tutelary deity, and Wusher. Who is Wusher? Keiichi had seen this name in the club's game props. He asked Rina, "Is this Wusher, the student who transferred out?" But Rina only said, "I don't know him well." This only increased Keiichi's confusion. He decided to get straight to the point and ask Rina, "Is everyone hiding something from me?" But unexpectedly, Rina asked him back, "Don't you have anything you're deceiving or hiding from us?" It turns out Rina knew Keiichi and the uncle talked yesterday. Keiichi felt a little guilty. He said the conversation was none of everyone's business. "Let's go." Keiichi was dumbfounded. That night, he sought out Daisher to ask for more information. So it turns out this village isn't so simple. In the past, Hinamizawa was feared by the world because it was called the village where ghosts live. There were legends of ghosts in the village snatching people to eat. And every year at the Cotton Flow Festival, besides those who died from foul play, there were often people who went missing due to ghostly disappearance. For example, in the household registration case of 1954, the whereabouts of the separated convicts are unknown. The deaths of the couples in 1955 and 1956. Only the husbands' bodies were found. The wives' bodies have not actually been found. The strangest thing is in 1957. The murderer arrested at that time was a habitual stimulant user, but he suddenly went berserk during interrogation. And the child who disappeared that same year was the victim's child. His name is Hojo Satoshi. This person was still attending Keiichi's current school until last year. Just as Keiichi was slightly stunned, Keiichi's father suddenly knocked on the door. He's still holding 2 teacups. Keiichi didn't understand, but his father said, "Don't pretend. Weren't you just chatting with Rina a moment ago?" "Rina?" Keiichi was so shocked he was speechless. The next day, Keiichi felt unwell and took a day off from school. He first went to the hospital for an injection. Then he met with Officer Daisher. Daisher said that he investigated Gashi, Keiichi's friends. The dam supervisor, who had been relocated in '54, had a dispute with Mayan Sanazaki a few weeks before the incident. When that couple died in 1955, their daughter was also present, that's Satoko Hoju. The head priest couple who died in 1956 were Rika Furid's parents. And the woman who died in 1957 was Satoko's adoptive aunt. The missing Satoshi Hoju is Satoko's older brother. Not to mention Keiichi. Every year's victims are connected to Keiichi's friends. Keiichi refuses to believe it. He thinks it's all coincidence. Besides, Rina is an outsider and unrelated to these incidents. But unexpectedly, Rina also has a problem. According to the investigation, Rina was originally a resident of Hinamizawa. Before that, she attended elementary school out of town where a serious incident occurred. That time she broke all the windows in the school. Psychiatric diagnosis case display. Rina kept repeating the word, "Goddess of the Shrine." It is said that the god of the shrine stands beside the pillow every night and looks down at him. Not long after that, she moved back to Hinamizawa. In short, after the above investigation, Daisher reminds Keiichi, right now, he himself is in real danger. That night, Mayan and Rina came to visit him. They also gave him rice balls made by Mayan's grandmother. One of them was made by Rina. Mayan hopes Keiichi can find it and treat it as an after-school club game. Seeing the two of them kindly comfort Keiichi, he finally relaxed a bit. But at that moment, Mayan suddenly changed her expression, and asked Keiichi what he talked about with that old man. Keiichi, feeling a bit guilty, said they didn't talk about anything concerning everyone. Keiichi was completely stunned at this point. Now he can no longer think normally. He thought about eating a rice ball, but found a needle in it. Someone wants to murder him. This is already a clear fact. But he doesn't want to be killed so easily. He recorded what he encountered and put it into the clock frame. Even if I die suddenly, I can leave clues for the police. From that day on, Keiichi decided to act alone. But he didn't expect danger to come so unexpectedly. While simply walking on the road, a van suddenly swerved towards him, almost knocking him down. Panicked, Keiichi found a baseball bat in the classroom cabinet under the pretext of baseball practice to defend himself, but he didn't expect everyone's expressions to change so strangely. Satoko's face turned completely black. Keiichi then noticed that the baseball bat had Mitsuyoshi's name written on it. Rina excitedly asked, "Why are you so similar to Gashi-kun? People who have never played sports suddenly want to practice baseball. We obviously have a good relationship, but you suddenly want to act alone." Then one day suddenly, Keiichi's parents went on a trip that night. "Leave him alone at home." Keiichi said he's fine and won't die, but he was actually preparing himself. He closed the doors and windows and put on the security chain. He quickly told Daisha about someone trying to harm him. Daisha reminded him to preserve the evidence, but the needle in the rice ball was gone. He couldn't remember the license plate number clearly in the panic. Anyway, the most crucial thing now is that his experiences are very similar to Gashi's. "I'm afraid Keiichi will have to transfer to another school soon." Just as he was about to ask Daisha about Rina, the doorbell rang. Keiichi opened a crack in the door. Rina was outside with a lunchbox, saying she brought him food. Keiichi tried to refuse, claiming his mother had already made dinner. But Rina questioned him, asking why he was lying. Keiichi was scared and immediately ran back inside. He listened as Daisha continued to talk about the rumor surrounding Rina. It turns out that when Rina smashed the glass, several male classmates were also beaten by Rina with a baseball bat. One of them still has aftereffects in his eye. But strangely, neither side filed a lawsuit. Keiichi couldn't sit still. It was raining heavily outside. He tried to close the window, but found Rina standing outside. She was muttering something to herself. The next day, Mayan told Keiichi to stop swinging his bat, and to stop imitating Satoshi. Everyone was worried. But this only angered Keiichi. He said it was all because everyone was hiding things. Now he no longer believes in so-called companions. Mayan appeared very heartbroken. But then, a gleam appeared in her eyes. On his way home from school, Keiichi saw Rina walking towards him with a hatchet. He seemed very disturbed. Keiichi was almost on the verge of collapse. He asked, "Rina? Mayan? Or someone else? Who exactly disappeared, Satoshi? Who is the culprit behind the series of mysterious deaths?" Rina responded. She said the culprit is not human. Everything is decided by the god of the shrine. I returned to Hinamizawa because of the guidance of the god of the shrine. She raised the hatchet and approached Keiichi. Keiichi tried to escape, but unexpectedly, a group of adults in work clothes pinned him down. Under this fierce siege, the baseball bat was useless. After an unknown amount of time, Keiichi woke up at home, only to find Rina sitting beside him. Mayan arrived shortly after, saying that the supervisor would be here soon. Keiichi hurriedly asked, "Who is the supervisor?" But the two just smiled wickedly, saying, "Supervision is supervision." Mayan also said that Keiichi hadn't completed the club's rice ball game, so now he has to accept punishment. Saying this, Mayan pulled out a syringe. Keiichi was dumbfounded. To find out the cause of Green Brother's death, we suspect it was caused by drugs. He tried to break free, but Rina held him tightly. Keiichi used a baseball bat to send them away, but the crisis wasn't over yet. He noticed a van pulling up outside. Keiichi quickly took out a slip of paper and wrote down what happened. He hid it with the syringe. Keiichi wanted to cry, but he didn't have time to be sad. He hurried out through the back door. After what seemed like a long time, Daisha received a call from Keiichi in a phone booth. The voice on the other end sounded extremely pained. Daisha immediately sent someone to the scene and asked who the culprit was. Keiichi replied that he initially thought the culprit was human, but the god of the shrine does exist. No matter how much he ran, he couldn't escape. The gods of the shrines followed him like a shadow. In June 1983, a female student murder occurred in Hinamizawa village. The suspect, Keiichi Mibara, used a metal bat to beat two female classmates, Mayan and Rika, to death. The suspect fled the scene afterwards. He was found collapsed in a phone booth. He died in the hospital 24 hours later. Cause of death was hemorrhagic shock from scratching his own throat with his fingernails. No evidence of drug use was found. A confession note hidden behind a clock was later discovered in the suspect's home. Several lines were torn out by an unknown person. Judging by the transparent tape found at the scene, something other than notes may have been attached there, but no such object was found. The following is the content of the note. I, Keiichi Maihara, someone wants me dead, but I don't know why. All I know is that it's all connected to the shrine's mischief. Rika and Mayan are the culprits, plus several men and a white van. I don't know how things turned out this way. If you see this note, by then, I will likely be dead. After reading this, please find the truth no matter what. This is my only wish, Keiichi Mibara. This is the story of Higurashi no Naku Kokusiai, the Higurashi arc. As the first chapter of the work, the Ghost Hidden chapter can be said to have brought the atmosphere of horror and suspense to its extreme. What is the truth behind the strange deaths? Who is chasing Keiichi? And what secrets are hidden behind these girls? To solve these mysteries, a single perspective is clearly insufficient. The story will now experience a kind of loop, repeatedly reliving June in Hinamizawa, until the truth was finally revealed, but the reason and mechanism behind this cycle remain unclear. June, 1958. I recently moved to this small village called Hinamizawa. The scenery is beautiful and the people are simple. That's right, the world has begun to reincarnate. That day, Keiichi was invited by his companions to participate in a game competition held in a toy store. The winner would receive a prize of 50,000 yen. Meanwhile, Mayan added another reward. The winner of the competition could freely command the losing club members. Now everyone's fighting spirit was ignited. Ultimately, Keiichi and Mayan both advanced to the finals, but just before the winner was decided, Mayan suddenly mentioned her work shift. The match's outcome had to be temporarily put aside. Keiichi immediately became unhappy. The bonus was almost in hand, and then this happened. To appease Keiichi's tantrum, the toy store manager gave him a doll, but this clearly didn't suit Keiichi's preferences. So he decisively gave it to Rina, who likes playing with machetes. Looking at Rina's blissful expression, Mayan seems to have something on her mind. However, she also says that she's an old soul at heart, and isn't interested in such dolls. Then, one day, Keiichi comes to the cafe, thinking of having a cup of coffee, but he never expected to be greeted by a familiar person dressed as a maid, Mayan. Considering his position as a guest, Keiichi showed a perverted expression, but the girl said she wasn't Mayan, but her younger sister, Cheyenne. Keiichi thought the twin theory was just an excuse, but he did feel an unprecedented gentleness. In the days that followed, Keiichi gradually began to notice the differences between the sisters. First, Mayan and Cheyenne dressed differently. Generally speaking, the one with the ponytail was the older sister, Mayan. The one with the loose hair is her younger sister, Cheyenne. Mayan is usually carefree and tomboyish. Cheyenne, on the other hand, is gentle and sweet. She even takes the initiative to bring him lunchboxes. While he was thinking of returning the lunchbox to Cheyenne, he unexpectedly angered the thugs with the cowlick hairstyles. Just as he was about to be beaten, Cheyenne suddenly appeared to stop the thugs. Not only that, the villagers from Hinamizawa also gathered around. They did nothing, but simply watched with serious expressions. Under the pressure of everyone's gaze, the thugs could only flee in a panic. Afterwards, Kichiai thanked Cheyenne and returned the lunchbox. Cheyenne, however, seemed somewhat puzzled, but quickly, as if understanding something, she said she knew why her sister liked him, and she even held Keiichi's hand, said that she also wanted to like Keiichi a little bit. Keiichi is shy but also a little confused, until they met their sister Mayan again on the street. Only then did he know what happened. It turns out that the person who delivered the bento before was Mayan disguised as Cheyenne. Keiichi is being completely confused by these two sisters, but others can tell. Mayan obviously has feelings for Keiichi. Rina reminds Keiichi, Mayan is not just a middle-aged man, she also has a side that is very much like a young girl. In the blink of an eye, the traditional festival of Hinamizawa village is approaching. Cotton Flow Festival. Keiichi now gets along well with both sisters. They haven't even started fighting over him yet. Then they happen to meet the freelance photographer, Ryuko, and the clinic nurse, Xiao Huang. During the chat, Cheyenne suddenly brought up the matter of the Cotton Flow Festival. Mayan disliked this topic and wanted to pull Keiichi away, but Keiichi didn't like being kept in the dark. So after Mayan left, Keiichi only then learned the details of the incident. Ryuko mentioned the dam incident and the mysterious death incident, saying that every year recently, during the Cotton Flow Festival, personnel related to the dam incident would be cruelly killed by the worshipped shrine god. In other words, unsolved murders with unknown causes and perpetrators. And one of them must have been hidden, because he was used as a sacrifice to appease the anger of the god of the shrine, meaning they disappeared without a trace. Were these really the work of a god? Xiao Huang and Cheyenne both thought these things were likely the work of a criminal in the village. Thus, the night of the Cotton Flow Festival arrived. Keiichi is preparing to watch the ritual dance performed by Rika, but Cheyenne pulled him to a place called Offering Hall in the back mountain. They also found Green Brother and Xiao Huang trying to pick the lock and break in. This place, called the Offering Hall, is forbidden ground in the Furud Shrine. Entry is forbidden to anyone except the Furud family. But Little Yellow is very interested in Hinamizawa's legends. She came here to satisfy her curiosity, while Green Bro is keeping watch outside for her. Taking this opportunity, Cheyenne also wanted to pull Keiichi inside, saying she had something she wanted to show Keiichi. Keiichi felt both confused and apprehensive. But with the intention of just taking a quick look and leaving, he followed the two into the shrine hall. There's a huge statue of the god there, and many tools that look like they were used for execution. Xiao Huang then mentioned the true meaning of the Cotton Flow Festival. Nowadays, during the Cotton Flow Festival, villagers put cotton into the river. symbolizing the removal of impurities. But actually, this festival was originally called the Shangluji, originating from human sacrifice. Legend says the people of this village have half-demon blood in them. Once the blood of these man-eating demons awakens, they will abduct humans and perform the intestinal flow ritual, meaning they will cut open a person's abdomen, remove their organs, and enjoy them as a delicacy. The ritual implements used by Rika in the ceremony. Actually, this is a dissection tool for cutting open a person's stomach. Keiichi wasn't quite convinced. He thought it was all ancient superstition. But Xiao Huang believed this custom might still be preserved in modern times. But in any case, these are taboo topics for the village. Xian also emphasized that the matter of breaking into the shrine at night must never be known to outsiders. Otherwise, the few of them might become targets for scapegoating. At this moment, Xian suddenly heard a sound like footsteps. But Keiichi didn't notice anything. Keiichi still hadn't figured out everything that happened tonight. But then, strange things started happening one after another. That night, Mayan pulled him aside and asked, "Did you see Xian tonight?" To save his life, Keiichi evaded the question. But the next morning, Mayan found Keiichi again and asked the same question. "Did you see Rika, Satoshi, and Xian last night?" Keiichi panicked a little. Mayan's face looks wrong. And the problem is even more bizarre. Mayan said she was thinking of asking again. Maybe there will be a different answer, but it's best if no one sees it. Keiichi wasn't involved in anything bad. I'll make sure to pass it on to everyone. Everyone. Who's that? Keiichi couldn't help but feel suspicious. The afternoon had arrived. Xian had asked Keiichi to meet her, wanting to say something. But unexpectedly, Officer Daisher suddenly appeared. Daisher teases Keiichi, saying he's dating two sisters. His physique is quite strong. Faced with this sarcastic remark, Keiichi's face turns red. Xian makes an excuse to leave. Daisher reminds Keiichi to be careful of the Sanozaki family. They say the Sanozaki family is a powerful local Yakuza organization, and Sanozaki Mayan is the next head of the family. Keiichi didn't quite understand the meaning of these words, but he heard a familiar question again. "Did you see Rika, Satoshi, and Xian last night?" Keiichi dodged the question again, but he had a bad feeling about it. It seemed the officer already knew about it. That night, Xian brought Keiichi the bad news. On the night of the Cotton Flow Festival, Ryuko-senpai and Xiao Huang died. Xiao Huang was burned to death. Ryuko seemed to have clawed out his own throat like a suicide. This is undoubtedly the handiwork of the legendary god of the shrine. As a group of 4 people visiting the shrine hall, the remaining 2 are probably also in grave danger. Thinking of this, Keiichi immediately broke down. He never thought that breaking into the sacrificial hall would lead to such a fate. That night, he only wanted to watch Rika's performance. Xian forced him to go. He blamed everything on Xian. But Xian didn't respond. Another day passed. Hinamizawa's village head disappeared. Keiichi thought of ghost disappearance. But strangely, it should be Xian and himself who went missing. At that moment, he accidentally bumped into Rika. Rika also asked him a similar question. "On the night of the Cotton Flow Festival, have you ever done anything bad? How does everyone know?" Keiichi is going crazy. And Rika is actually a shrine maiden at the Furid Shrine. She's definitely the person who cares most about the prohibitions of the sacred hall. Keiichi can't speak. But Rika didn't directly call him out. Instead, she used a metaphor. It seemed a small cat entered the shrine that night. Rika didn't seem angry. So Keiichi followed up by asking, was it just a curious cat that went in for a look? Many puppies came to ask it if it had gone inside. What should the kitten do now? Rika replied that she would try her best to protect the kitten. The puppies probably just misunderstood. If the village chief's puppy mistakenly bites the cat, please let her know. At the same time, Rika also hinted. Cat's sister, also known as Mayan, is angry about what her sister did. He hopes Keiichi can calm Mayan down. Keiichi was very uneasy that night. Rika's words sounded like she was there. He wasn't sure if telling Rika was the right thing to do. At that moment, he received a call from Xian. Keiichi first apologized for his impulsive behavior last night. He now understood that they were in the same situation. Important information must be shared promptly. So Keiichi shared the news of the village head's disappearance. Xian became extremely panicked after hearing this. She said she told the village head about going to the shrine because she was scared. She told the village head about going to the offering hall, although she received the village head's forgiveness. But she didn't expect that night, the village head disappeared. It wasn't the person who entered the offering hall that was spirited away. Or rather, a companion who learned about this. Hearing this, Keiichi felt a bad premonition. He immediately called Rina's house. But unexpectedly, after 10 minutes, no one answered. Keiichi hurriedly contacted his club companions. He went to Rina's house to look for her. You should know that both Rika and Satoko are orphans now. The 2 of them live together. But now, both of them have disappeared. Keiichi and Mayan are planning to use a ladder to climb through the window. But unexpectedly, when Satoko is mentioned, Mayan suddenly becomes agitated. She said Satoko was cursed. Then, Mayan seemed to become a different person. She continuously poured out her hatred for Satoko. She said Satoko's relatives all died or disappeared because of her. Even Gashi, who sacrificed for her, was erased. Rika's disappearance must have also been Satoko's doing. Keiichi was completely dumbfounded. At that moment, he understood. Perhaps there was a completely different presence within Mayan. Several people searched the house of Rika and Satoko, but they still couldn't find any trace of the two. The entire village mobilized to search everywhere. Keiichi blames himself, thinking he's the one who caused Rika's suffering. He fears that the people around him will disappear one after another. But then Rina pats his head. "Don't worry, I'll absolutely never disappear," Rina said. This calmed Keiichi down. The next day, Officer Daisher found Keiichi again, and exchanged some details about the case. There have been so many cases recently. There is no clue in the murder of Green Brother and Xiao Huang yet. Then suddenly, Rika and Satoko went missing again. However, the village head's whereabouts are known. They say that on the day he disappeared, he went to a hospital in town early in the morning for a checkup. On his way back, he was involved in a tram accident. Then he immediately rushed to the shrine's gathering. Hearing this, Keiichi suddenly remembered Cheyenne saying she would confess to the village head. But the village head was outside all day. So, when exactly did Cheyenne confess? Keiichi hadn't recovered for half a day. Officer Daisher continued. The police knew that 4 people snuck into the ritual hall that night. Someone was spreading this around the next day. This was originally a charge of illegal intrusion. But the key question now is, what exactly is in the shrine hall? And why have there been a series of tragic incidents involving those who entered it? Why were the other 3 killed? And why are you unharmed? Keiichi was stunned. The other 3, he only then learned that Cheyenne had also disappeared. Then who was the Cheyenne who had been talking to him these past few days? That night, Keiichi received another call from Cheyenne. The voice on the other end of the line sounded very much like Cheyenne's. But the more it resembled her, the more terrifying it became. Keiichi directly questioned the other person about when they confessed to the village chief. He begged the other person for a reasonable explanation. The next day, Keiichi apologized to Rina for secretly going to the shrine hall. Rina slapped him. She said it was to scold him on behalf of their companions. At this time, Keiichi happened to be among the scattered circulated boards. He found information about the Sanzaki family sharing their soy sauce brewing process. Combining this with earlier intelligence, it seems we have a lead on the disappearance. Here's Rina's deduction. When everyone went to Rika's house that night, they found her bicycle missing from the entrance. This suggests that the 2 of them went out. Ginger soup was simmering on the stove. There was also 2 servings of rice in the rice cooker. And considering the ingredients in the refrigerator, it's clear they were in the middle of making dinner when something urgent came up. Then, seeing the empty soy sauce bottle on the table, and the missing large soy sauce bottle from the cupboard, Rika most likely went to the Sanzaki household to get soy sauce, probably carrying a big bottle of it. But Rika didn't come back for a long time. So Satoko called the Sanzaki household. The other party said something like, "Rika is eating dinner here. Why don't you come over too?" So Satoko followed. Following this line of reasoning, and combining it with the fact that someone impersonated Cheyenne, it's obvious that Mayan, who is still at the Ushiromiya family mansion, has become the prime suspect. But because the police didn't get permission, Daisher and the others must not trespass on private property, so Keiichi and Rina decided to visit them in person. In the living room, Mayan asked them the purpose of their visit. Keiichi first apologized to Mayan. He confessed to trespassing in the shrine's hall. His attitude was quite sincere. But Mayan didn't care about it. She seemed to be anticipating their following statements. Lena spoke frankly. She took out a soy sauce flyer, and presented her deduction. All evidence points to Mayan hiding Rika and Satoko. Faced with her companion's accusations, Mayan laughed. After a fit of laughter, Mayan suddenly became serious. She reintroduced herself as the heir to the Sanazaki family. Then, they started talking about the legends of Hinamizawa. It is said that Hinamizawa was once called Onibuchi village. The villagers were said to be half human, half ghost immortals. Therefore, they were worshipped by the people. But as time went on, more and more people began to denigrate the villagers as monsters. They were wantonly bullied. The villagers suffered discrimination outside the village. So, just like when Keiichi was attacked by thugs, the villagers stood together in unity. Their goal was to restore the prestige of the old Onion village. And this is also the fate of the demon heir. The heir of demon. I don't understand this. Mayan's explanation is just like her name. Each generation of the head of the Sanzaki family has Oni in their name. And they also have an Oni tattoo on their back. The strange deaths that have occurred in the last 5 years, it was actually planned by the 3 most powerful families in the village. They are the Q's family, represented by the village head, the Furud family, represented by Rika, and the Sanazaki family, the inheritors of the demon. Mayan admitted that she is at the center of all these events. As for the deaths of Rika and Satok, it's all because of the evil spirits residing within their bodies. But Mayan didn't intend to explain further. Rina said, despite that, Mion, you still spared Keiichi by your own will. Yeah, why didn't you kill him? Mayan replied, the evil spirit in me can't understand it. Maybe Mayan doesn't want to hurt him. Faced with the police surrounding the place now, Mayan agrees to surrender. But before that, she wants to spend some time alone with Keiichi. In the courtyard of the Sanazaki house, Mayan grabbed Keiichi's hand. She expressed her love. Then, she revealed the truth that Cheyenne was still alive. Only, she was locked up somewhere. Mayan hoped Keiichi would go see the sins she had committed. Keiichi agreed without hesitation. Then the two of them came to a dimly lit basement. It was like a sacrificial hall. There were many torture devices, and there were still many bloodstains on them. Mayan admitted that everyone was ground to dust here by her. But luckily, Cheyenne is safe and sound, except she seems to have some mental issues. Mayan seems to be completely possessed by a demon. She's about to deal with Keiichi right now. The demon says it awakened because of a certain incident. If he had given the doll to Mayan back then, perhaps everything wouldn't have turned out so badly. Because Keiichi made Mayan cry, the ghost awakened. The ghost said it would hammer nails into Keiichi's fingers and joints. But unexpectedly, Keiichi remained very calm. He frankly said that if doing so could suppress the ghost within Mayan, then he would willingly accept the punishment. However, he expressed two wishes. One is that he hopes the ghost will let Cheyenne go. And two, he hopes the ghost will return Mayan's body. If he could have a third. Of course, I still hope you can let yourself off the hook. Hearing this speech, Ghost whispered, rescuing Cheyenne. That's already impossible. Return the body to Mayan. That's impossible now. But I could consider letting you go. Because we've wasted too much time. The sound of the police breaking down the door outside grew louder. Ghost suddenly shed a few tears. Whispering, I'm sorry for sullying May's voice. Please forget about me. From now on, even if you see me, please don't approach. Because I'm just a ghost possessing this body. Finally, the police rescued Keiichi and Cheyenne. But unfortunately, they couldn't catch Mayan. The bodies of the other victims were never found. Such a terrible thing had happened in the village. Keiichi's parents decided to move him away. But on the eve of their move, Mayan suddenly appeared downstairs. Staring at her smile, Keiichi thought things might have already passed. He went forward to offer comfort. But Mayan's condition was clearly wrong. That same night, Cheyenne fell from a great height. She died instantly. The next day, Keiichi woke up in the hospital. Officer Daisher said the case has been solved. They're at the bottom of the well at Yuan Chi's house. They found the bodies of the village head, Rika, and the other victims. The only question now is who attacked Keiichi and Cheyenne last night. Was it Mayan Sanazaki? But her body was also found at the bottom of the well. And according to the autopsy, she had already died on the day the police broke in. So who did Keiichi meet last night? The body of the girl who was burned to death was also missing. The autopsy results showed the time of death was 24 hours ago. In other words, she had actually died the day before the Cotton Flow Festival. So who was the girl Keiichi met that night? Daisher exclaimed, this whole incident was just corpses moving around. Keiichi was dumbfounded. He looked out the window. Suddenly, on June 1958, recently, Keiichi moved to this small village called Hinamizawa. It's a place of beautiful scenery and simple folkways. Yes, the world has looped again. But this world is a bit more exciting. Someone died right at the beginning. A garbage bag was found in a nearby city canal. Inside was a badly decomposed body. The intestines had been removed. Steel nails were hammered into the hands. What impact will this corpse have on everyone in Hinamizawa? No one knows yet. Because his parents are out, he has no choice but to cook alone. But Keiichi can't cook, which is a huge problem in many ways. Right now, he's trying to stir-fry something. He almost burned the house down. Luckily, Rika and Satoko arrived just in time. They prevented a tragedy. Satoko volunteered to help Keiichi with the cooking. These two young girls became orphans at such a young age. It forced them to learn to be independent. Although the adorably naive Satoko can't even tell the difference between broccoli and cauliflower, the meals she makes are still quite delicious. This brings Keiichi a sense of comfort. Satoko is usually quite mischievous, often setting up various traps to prank Keiichi. But when it matters most, she proves to be so reliable. Keiichi stroked Satoko's head. He gently praised her. When leaving, Rika sighed. Satoko was rarely this happy. It was as if she had returned to the time when she was with her older brother. Only then did Keiichi learn that Satoko had an older brother named Satoshi. But it said that Satoshi ran away from home. No one knows when he'll return. The next day, the school and city baseball teams had a game. After the game, Keiichi met the baseball team's coach. This person was also a doctor at the local clinic. His name is Irie. Dr. Irie really likes Satoko. He even wants to marry her. Of course, that's a joke. 3 years ago, Satoko's parents died in an accident. A year ago, my brother Gashi, who was on the baseball team, also suddenly disappeared. But even so, Satoko remained optimistic. Her innocent and carefree smile was healing. Irie considered adopting Satoko as his daughter. But since I'm still single, and I have no experience taking care of children, I gave up on the idea. Adopt her as my daughter and make her wear a maid outfit. Then Cheyenne suddenly appeared. She seemed quite familiar with Irie. It turned out Cheyenne used to be the manager of the baseball team, but I haven't watched many games in the past year. Cheyenne praised Satoko's athletic ability, saying she was worlds apart from her brother. The topic of Gashi suddenly came up, so Keiichi asked, "Did Gashi transfer schools?" Cheyenne apologizes for her impulsiveness, but she asks Keiichi not to mention Gashi transferring schools again. It seems there is some hidden truth behind this matter. Keiichi directs his questions to Rina and Mayan. Mayan says Gashi suddenly disappeared one day. Before disappearing, he even emptied his bank account. Therefore, it was suspected that he ran away from home. But Rina thought it was a trick by the god of the shrine. Before his disappearance, Gashi said that it felt like someone was watching him, like someone was following him. Even before he went to sleep, someone would stand by his pillow and look down at him. Without a doubt, these were all precursors to the shrine deity's actions. Rina herself was once punished by the god for leaving the village, but now she has returned to the village, and received the god's forgiveness. But Gashi's heart is surely set on abandoning Hinamizawa. This is something the god cannot forgive. I said, "Stop it already." Mayan stopped the conversation, but afterward, the two of them said goodbye with smiles, as if nothing had happened. Mayan told Keiichi about the government's dam construction project from a few years prior. At that time, the village was divided into two factions. One was the opposition, comprised of most of the villagers. The other was the support faction, headed by Satoko's parents. The final result was that the opposition won. The government stopped the dam project. And yet, Sadako's loved ones passed away one by one. So everyone believed it was a punishment sent by the Emperor God, to spare Sadako's feelings. No one in the class was willing to bring up these topics. I just used transferring schools as an excuse when others asked. Keiichi enjoyed a normal and happy time in Hinamizawa. This was the first time I felt the shadow behind my companions. For a while after that, for some reason, Satoko didn't come to school. And that day, a police officer named Daisher came to the school looking for Satoko. Keiichi stopped the large stone. He didn't want Satoko to get involved with the police. But the large stone grabbed Keiichi's shoulder. He spoke in a threatening tone. "Don't make enemies on this land, or you'll suffer unexpected retribution." Keiichi was in terrible pain. Fortunately, Dr. Irie arrived just in time and persuaded Oishi to leave. Irie had absolutely no liking for this police officer. This Dashi was undeniably cunning and experienced. He could inflict a lot of pain when squeezing someone's shoulder. Yet, he left no trace whatsoever. I don't know why he's been clinging to Satoko. Satoko had finally managed to find relief. What does relief mean? Keiichi didn't quite understand. It turns out that after Satoko and Satoshi's parents died, they were raised by an aunt and uncle with no blood relation. This period was incredibly painful. The two siblings suffered inhuman abuse. Because of the dam war, their uncle and aunt couldn't hold their heads up in the village. So they took out their anger on Satoko and Satoshi. Beating them, starving them, this was commonplace. This must also be the reason why Satoshi ran away from home. But whether it was fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know. At last year's Cotton Flow Festival, Aunt was inexplicably murdered. Uncle, fearing the manipulation of the gods, fled to his mistress's house in the city. It was after this that Satoko was finally able to live a normal life. But Satoko's recent leave and the police officer's arrival, what does it all mean? Keiichi felt a sense of unease. That evening, Keiichi wanted to visit Satoko, who was on leave. He happened to meet Irie driving her home. Keiichi wanted to greet her, but suddenly, a thug-like man inside the house yelled at Sadako. He insulted her and threw an ashtray at her. Seeing the bruises on Sadako, Keiichi lost his temper, but for some reason, Irie stopped him. Satoko didn't complain at all. She simply thanked Keiichi. She said that although her brother was missing, Keiichi was like a real brother to her at this moment. Keiichi said he would never run away like Satoshi, but after saying that, Satoko was sent away by that thug again. Faced with this situation, Irie expressed his helplessness. That man was actually Sadako's uncle, named Tetsuhei Hojo. For some reason, he suddenly returned to the village and continued to abuse Sadako. Actually, under the child protection law, in this situation, measures to separate her from her family can be implemented. But the problem is that she herself denies the abuse. Then a thought came into Saduko's mind. The thought that she was left behind because she was a burden. Now, facing her uncle's abuse, she thought of it all as a test. As long as she became strong enough, her brother would return. This warped idea even became her reason for living. After hearing this, Keiichi was extremely dissatisfied. The older brother didn't even try to stop his sister from running away. If it's for Satoko's happiness, Keiichi says he'll do anything. As the time of the Cotton Flow Festival approaches, Keiichi happens to run into Rika and Mayan on the road. The three of them talk about the Ashikusama lottery tickets at the annual Cotton Flow Festival. Xiao Huang proposed a hypothesis. The so-called ticket writing was actually orchestrated by the Sanozaki family, the most powerful family in the village, with the participation of the other three prominent families, in a series of murders. They did this to achieve a certain goal. Hearing this news, Keiichi grasped at it like a lifeline. He visited Mayan's house alone. Keiichi doesn't care at all about the murderer's motive behind the string of murders. He is completely unconcerned. But if Mayan, or someone connected to her, Keiichi hopes to make this year's target Satoko's uncle. Mayan looks conflicted and helpless. The series of murders orchestrated by the Oyashiro-sama. If what you're saying is true, I will definitely fulfill Keiichi's wish. But reality is not like that. There are indeed many bad rumors about the Sanozaki family, but something like taking someone's life would never happen. Mayan's denial plunged Keiichi into despair. A few days later, Satoko came to school normally. She said that people from the Child Protection Center had visited her home, but there were some misunderstandings. She and her uncle had already apologized. Satoko seemed perfectly normal all day. Keiichi finally relaxed a little. He thought maybe Tetsuhiyai had become more restrained, and was no longer abusing her, so he tried to pat her head as usual. But that touch caused a huge problem. That push almost knocked the person senseless. Satoko vomited as if having an overreaction. She cried and apologized at the same time. Clearly, she hasn't gotten over it at all. That man, Hojo Tetsuhiyai, was still abusing her. This man must die. At this moment, Keiichi had an idea. He asked his mother, who loved mystery novels, which work she considered the perfect crime. But his mother said there wasn't such a work, because the fun of mystery novels lies in deciphering the mystery. If no crime occurred, then the detective won't come, and the story won't unfold. Keiichi got an idea. That is to say, as long as no one discovers the event itself, then it's the perfect crime. And now Keiichi happens to have the conditions for it. Hinamizuwa's population is sparse, and there's a lot of wilderness. The road from the north house to the village is a large forest. And the Cotton Flow Festival is coming soon. Last year, Tetsuhiyai ran away because he was afraid of the Goshin God ticket. So, even if he disappears suddenly now, no one will care, since no one else can help. Then he himself will act as the representative of the enshrined god. Keiichi found a metal rod in the classroom. This was the most readily available weapon he could get. The night before the Cotton Flow Festival, Keiichi called Mayan. He asked her to take Satoko to the festival tomorrow. Mayan readily agreed. After all, this is a rare day of relaxation for Satoko. But the problem is, why aren't you taking her, Keiichi? Keiichi said he had something to do tomorrow. Suddenly, Mayan's tone turned heavy. She said that last year, before the Cotton Flow Festival, she received an identical call from Gashi. It was about something. But then Satoko's aunt was beaten to death, and Gashi himself disappeared. Keiichi didn't say more. He hung up. And then he finally understood. It turns out that Gashi didn't abandon his sister. He killed his aunt at the Cotton Flow Festival and then fled. Now, he's determined to become Satoko's brother. He seems to have inherited Gashi's will as well. On the morning of the Cotton Flow Festival, Keiichi dug a hole in the road. He dug, recalling his past. When he was in the city, his life wasn't satisfactory. Monotonous classes, his parents' expectations, and the bullying from his classmates. He felt incredibly tormented by these meaningless things. But after coming to Hinamizuwa, everything is different. Everyone here is so friendly. The different club activities every day also fill his life with fun and anticipation. Now Keiichi wants to save Satoko. Actually, he's also saving this precious time. As evening approached, Keiichi began to act. He pretended to be a police officer and called Tetsuhiyai. He said that Satoko had committed a crime. He asked Tetsuhiyai to come to the police station immediately. Then he ambushed the road Tetsuhiyai would inevitably take when leaving his house. The moment he arrived, he struck him on the head. Tetsuhiyai fell off the motorcycle directly. At this moment, he still didn't understand what had happened. He saw the boy in front of him beating himself as if he had gone mad. Tetsuhiyai kept running away, and the boy kept chasing him. Heavy blows landed on his head again and again. At first, screams were incessant, but soon the sound ceased. After Keiichi confirmed that Teppei was no longer breathing, he immediately hid the murder weapon. He threw the motorcycle and the bat into the Hinamizuwa swamp, but because he couldn't move the body, he could only dig another hole in the same spot. After an unknown amount of time, Keiichi finally filled the hole. Then he laughed like a child, but due to the strenuous exercise and the sudden downpour, Keiichi's stamina completely deplete. He directly collapsed on the way home. At that moment, he just happened to run into someone he knew, Xiao Huang. "What are you doing with that shovel?" Ah, I just went treasure hunting at the garbage dump with Rina, but the garbage dump is in the completely opposite direction from here. Xiao Huang saw through the lie immediately, but luckily, she's a kind person. She offered to drive Keiichi home. Keiichi remained silent the whole car ride, but Xiao Huang suddenly asked, which shocked Keiichi. But Xiao Huang said it was a joke, laughing. Before getting off the car, she emphasized repeatedly, I didn't meet you tonight, okay? That's better for you, too. Keiichi felt something was wrong deep down. After getting out of the car, he regretted not killing this person as well. So, he silently cursed that little boy, hoping he'd be cursed by the shrine god. And just then, he suddenly heard footsteps behind him. The next day, Keiichi encountered a strange situation at school. He clearly didn't go to the festival last night. But Rina, Mayan, and even Rika were all talking about Keiichi's fun time at the festival last night. They said he won a shooting prize last night, and gave the giant stuffed animal prize to Rina. But even stranger is Satoko. Keiichi asked if that man was gone. But Satoko collapsed upon hearing Teppei's name, saying her uncle had been brutally abusing her last night. What do you mean, Tetsuhei is gone? Keiichi, what you're saying is so strange. His friends are looking at him like he is crazy. Keiichi was completely overwhelmed. He told Dr. Irie about these things, but the doctor didn't understand at all. In his opinion, Keiichi's mental state was clearly disturbed. Near the breaking point, Keiichi even revealed what happened to Tetsuhei. Hearing this, Irie finally became serious. He's a doctor. He wouldn't approve of taking a life. But regarding saving Sadako, he expressed his gratitude. Keiichi couldn't help but cry. Finally, someone understands. But strangely, it's as if Tetsuhei is still alive. He will continue to torment Satoko. Irie said we can discuss this slowly. Let's relax with a cup of black tea first. Saying this, he walked out. Meanwhile, Keiichi followed him out. Outside the door, he overheard Irie say, mix sleeping pills and anesthetic into the black tea. The patient is fabricating lies, their memories are confused. The symptoms strongly resemble a mental disorder. Hearing this, Keiichi completely broke down. It turns out that no one ever believed him. Keiichi cursed Irie to death. He disregarded the heavy rain. He returned to the place where the body was buried. Now he wants to dig up the body to confirm Tetsuhei's fate. But unexpectedly, at this moment, Daisha and several officers found Keiichi. They forced Keiichi to continue digging the hole. Violence would be used if he refused. Keiichi no longer cared about Sana's crime. He only wanted to confirm Teppei's fate, but he was too exhausted. He was pinned to the ground by a large stone. Watching him continue digging, the large stone said sarcastically, is your hobby digging holes in the rain? Faced with such an insult, Keiichi cursed the large stone. May you pig-headed fool, also suffer the divine punishment of the Oyashiro-sama. But what truly broke Keiichi wasn't Daisha. It was this pit. While it did feel like it had been dug twice, even after digging to the bottom, he found no body. The police were stunned. Keiichi was completely dumbfounded. Waking up in bed the next day, Keiichi fell into deep doubt. Did I not kill Tetsuhei? Was it all a dream? But it's okay. If it's not sanded down, just sand it again. He picked up an axe and headed straight for Satoko's house. Satoko's house was quite messy. There was still last night's dinner for two on the floor. So, it wasn't sanded down after all. Keiichi wanted to find Tetsuhei, but he found Satoko collapsed in the bathroom, still muttering numbers. 5039, 5040. In Japan, there's a tradition of having children count while bathing. It's to ensure they bathe for a sufficient amount of time. Usually, it's counting to 100. But Satoko was asked to count to 10,000. Tetsuhei, you bastard. Keiichi was completely furious. He roared, wildly slashing about the room in a frenzy. But right now, he needs to take Satoko for treatment first. They arrived at the clinic to find it surrounded by police cars. They learned from the police that Dr. Irie had committed suicide by overdosing on sleeping pills. And at the same time, Xiao Huang was burned to death. Daisha is also missing. The people Keiichi cursed before actually died. What's going on? Satoko suggested they take shelter at Rina's house. But on the way, Keiichi found things increasingly strange. The curse, the incident with the bodies, and the strange footsteps. He told Satoko everything. But he didn't expect that Satoko was also scared and wanted to leave. Although she said it was alright and that we should rest early, in reality, he thinks she saw him as mentally ill. Keiichi was at a loss. Suddenly, he saw many crows gathered in front of the shrine. He went to check and discovered a shocking scene. Rika's belly was cut open. Blood was everywhere. Keiichi cried and used an axe to drive away the crows. But he accidentally got blood on the axe. And the scene of him picking up the axe was witnessed by Satoko, who had come running at the sound. Keiichi offended Satoko. Satoko was so scared that she immediately ran away. Keiichi wanted to chase after her and explain the misunderstanding, but in his panic, he forgot he was still holding an axe. he quickly threw the axe into the river. But by then, Satoko could no longer believe him. She told Keiichi to turn around with his hands behind his back, and said, "I know this isn't Keiichi's fault. You must be possessed by something. The Keiichi now is not the real Keiichi, cursing others, slaughtering your close friends. You are now the representative of the shrine god, aren't you?" Saying this, Satoko pushed the hateful representative of the shrine god down. Keiichi grabbed onto the bridge's rope. He said, tears streaming down his face, "Satoko, please believe me. I only want you to be happy." But Satoko struggled desperately against the rope. "You were even pretending to be Keiichi at the last moment. Damn you. Give my brother back. Give Keiichi back. I won't lose to you." Soon after, the news reported on the Hinamizawa disaster. It is said that a highly toxic volcanic gas erupted somewhere in Hinamizawa late at night. The death toll exceeds 1,000. No one in the entire village survived. Wait a moment. According to the latest intelligence, it seems a survivor has been found, although this person also fell into a deep coma due to the toxic gas. They received timely medical attention and their life was saved. This person's name is Keiichi Mibara. June, 1958. Keiichi and Rina, in a simple folk customs. The world begins its cycle anew. Rina was engaging in an intense and exciting water gun battle with her club members. But unexpectedly, this game came down to Keiichi and Rina. In the end, both sides were hit, resulting in a draw. The victor will have to wait until the next club game. Afterwards, Rina came to the secret base in the garbage dump. She sighed, reflecting on how easy and pleasant life in Hinamizawa was. But looking at the heavy rain outside, she couldn't help but remember her childhood. Reina Ryugu's original name was Rina Ryugu. Before, she studied abroad with her parents. Her father took care of the house while her mother worked. In her free time, her mother would often take Rina out to play with an uncle. One day, her mother asked Rina, "Do you like this uncle?" Rina didn't answer. She didn't quite understand the meaning of these words. Not long after, her mother was exposed for having an affair. The third party was that uncle. Although she received a huge alimony from the divorce settlement, her father never recovered after that. Rina also angrily smashed everything related to her mother. Then, this resentment continued to spread, until Rina smashed all the windows of the school, even including several students. After this violent incident, Rina returned to Hinamizawa with her father. She changed her name from Rina to Rina. It means letting go of the name my mother gave me, letting go of the past to embrace a new life. She finally felt long-lost happiness with her father. But that day, my father brought news. He said he'd met a woman named Zijie. All the furniture was new. The house has become much cleaner. Even father, who used to be so gloomy, has become cheerful. It seems like a good thing. But looking at those old things discarded in the yard, Lena felt a little sad. She enjoyed searching for old things in the garbage dump. It's because I resonate with these discarded things. But now, father has decisively abandoned them. What will that mean? One day, Lena happened to come to a cafe in the city. She saw a woman with purple hair and a blonde-haired thug sitting together. The two were acting intimately. He's still blackmailing two honest people. From their conversation, you can hear words like divorced man, huge alimony, etc. Lena immediately became alert. She happened to meet Cheyenne and her butler, Sunglasses Guy. She learned from Sunglasses Guy. It turns out that the blonde man's name is Tetsuhiyai. He's the uncle who abused Satoko. And the purple-haired woman is Ziji. She's Tetsuhiyai's mistress. They're habitual blackmailers. They often set traps for other men. It's commonly known as the fairy jump. Rina quickly returned home and went through her father's passbook. There were indeed recent records of large expenditures. There was no doubt that Zijia was a bad woman. And Rina hated bad women the most. Rina had considered telling her father and the police about the fraud. She even sought help from Sunglasses Guy. But before she could get ready, Zijia came to her. She asked Lena if she agreed to her marriage with her father. Now Zijia completely controlled her father. Now all she needed was Lena's consent. Then they can form new families. Lena flatly refused. Facing Zijia's hateful expression, she directly exposed the scam. What is loving him? You're just using him as an ATM, aren't you? Sister Z didn't expect this child to be so difficult. She originally wanted to coax her, but after looking around, she said, "This place is your secret base, right? A secret base where no one will find you." Having said that, Ziji decisively made her move. I almost had tens of millions. After this job, I would disappear. How could I fail because of a little brat? Zijie grabbed Lena's neck with deadly force. But she had a point. This is Lena's secret base. She was intimately familiar with this place. Lena casually grabbed a shard of glass. She used it to break free from the strangulation. Then she picked up a discarded iron rod. She bludgeoned the person to death with it. Finally, she hid the body in an old refrigerator. Returning home, Lena witnessed Tetsuhiyai blackmailing her father. So she decided to go all the way. Lina also lured Tetsuhei to the garbage mountain. In the darkness, Lina raised her cleaver and killed Taiping with one blow. Her fighting prowess is truly worthy of being Jianzi's child. The next day, Lina didn't attend the club activities. She went to the garbage mountain early to dispose of the body. Meanwhile, everyone at school was playing mahjong, but they couldn't play because several tiles were missing. So they decided to go to the garbage mountain to look for the tiles, or perhaps just have a thrilling treasure hunt. This search was really exciting. All of them were all stunned. Keiichi asked why they didn't consult their friends when this happened, but Rina countered, asking what good consulting their friends would do. Last year, the whole school knew that Satoshi and Satoko were being abused. Whether it was the Shrine Maiden or the heir to the Sonozaki family, no one could help Satoshi. Ultimately, this drove Satoshi to the desperate act of murdering his aunt. So-called companions are only good for sharing pleasant, boring times, but they're useless in times of real suffering. But Keiichi firmly believed his companions could help. Before arriving in Hinamizawa, Keiichi had also been withdrawn for a long time because of something, but his lively and kind companions redeemed him. He knew nothing about what happened last year. If he had been there at the time, he would have done everything he could, even going so far as to kill his aunt in Satoshi's place. His tone was firm, as if he had done it himself. Keiichi believes that as long as his companions work together, they can surely create a better future than now. In short, Rina's way is undoubtedly the worst. But as a companion, Keiichi decides to understand her and forgive her. Satoko, Rika, and Mayan all reached out their hands. They were willing to share the guilt. Together, they buried the body in the deep mountains and never spoke of it again. Through their efforts, they regained their usual joyful times. But with the arrival of the Cotton Flow Festival, the joyful times abruptly ended. The day after the Cotton Flow Festival, the police ambassador contacted Lina. The mischief of the imperial god occurred. Ryuko was strangled to death, and Xiao Huang was burned. Daisher asked Lina if she had any information related to the two. Lina didn't say anything at the time, but after returning home, she picked up a notebook. Xiao Huang gave her this notebook a few days ago. She ran into Xiao Huang by chance then, and they talked about the strange deaths at the Cotton Flow Festival. Xiao Huang skillfully recounted the legends of Hinamizawa village and the history of the Chanlu records, and the possible human involvement behind the forged documents. The difference is that Reina mentioned that she had been punished by the god of the shrine. It turns out that when the baseball bat incident happened, she had once tried to kill herself and cut her wrists with a knife. Then she found countless shrimp-like insects gushing out with the blood. At that time, she heard the divine instruction of the shrine god. There's only one way to be saved. That is to return to Hinamizawa. So Lina followed the divine instruction. After returning to the village, her illness disappeared. Hearing this, Xiao Huang gave Lina a notebook, saying that the research inside might be useful to her. But you must never let anyone know about the notes. If those people find out about the research above, she will definitely be cleaned. Lina didn't understand at first, but now, after Xiao Huang's murder, she immediately opened the notes, and it clearly states the truth behind the words, Goshen God worship. Rina suspects she's in danger. This time, she decides to ask her companions for help, so she tells Keiichi the truth. Legend says the villagers of Hinamizawa transform into ghosts and attack humans, but actually, they are infected by something and turned into ghosts that attack people. And this something comes from a parasite in the Hinamizawa swamp. This parasite is similar to a virus. It makes the infected incredibly violent and mentally unstable. Moreover, due to the climate and local conditions, the parasite will continuously intensify once it leaves Hinamizawa. It makes people want to go back home. This is the truth behind the divine punishment. The so-called shrine god was probably just a doctor who treated diseases. He helped people suppress their symptoms, but didn't cure the virus. So he established a rule: no one from the village is to go out, and no outsiders are to come in. He told everyone it was divine punishment, but actually, he was implementing quarantine. And thanks to this, the number of people infected with the virus is decreasing. After a long period of natural selection, only individuals resistant to the parasite remained in the village. This is also the truth behind the legend of the villagers' blood merging with that of the ghosts. This explains the intestinal flow festival as well. Eating the infected's internal organs is essentially the principle of a vaccine. Of course, eating is actually more like researching. This seems to explain everything. But there is a logical flaw. Why did Ryuko and Xiao Huang die? They never went outside the village, so how could they have fallen ill? And this is the key point Rina wants to make. For the believers of the shrine god, if the truth in the notes is exposed, the entire village's faith will be shattered. So someone will definitely want to eliminate the researcher, Xiao Huang. The mastermind is most likely the Sonozaki family. The white van occasionally seen in the village is rumored to be the Sonozaki family's private force. And the death of Ryuko further proves that they have already mastered the power of the parasite. They were using him as a test subject. The Sonozaki family may be planning something. When the time comes, the entire village will face catastrophe. Of course, Rina also shared this with the police, but the police lacked evidence and couldn't act. Over the next few days, Lena felt the danger closing in on her. The people in the white van were monitoring her at school. This forced Lena to run away from home. And for some reason, besides the Sonozaki family, it seems the police are also after her. The bodies buried in the back mountain have been dug up. It must be that Mayan betrayed me. She told them about Ziji and Tetsuhiyai. Now Rina is hiding in an abandoned bus, weak and helpless. Suddenly, the police received information. She said that Reina was found in another location. So, they turned and began searching. Recalling what Daisher had mentioned earlier about the time of death of Xiao Huan, Reina's reasoning advanced further. At this moment, her neck became even itchier, and her hands were covered in shrimp insects. It was then that Keiichi found Reina. Seeing the scars on her neck, Keiichi felt immense pain, but Reina refused his help. It was Mayan, right? She dug up the body. That's right. Keiichi explained that there were logging plans for that forest. There's a risk of being discovered. That's why Mayan switched bodies, wanting to help hide it. But Rina doesn't believe it at all. She's become completely hostile towards the Sonozaki family. After hearing this, Keiichi was stunned. Let's not talk about the aliens for now. Didn't we agree to trust each other? Reina asked back, friends don't keep secrets from each other. And I know everything you did before. So Rina had investigated Keiichi's past. Before coming to Hinamizawa, Keiichi was a total delinquent. At the time, he assaulted passers-by with a toy gun. He specifically targeted little girls. He even caused injuries. That's a major reason why Keiichi moved to Hinamizawa. Shouldn't there be no secrets between companions? You're not even a companion. After saying that, Rina turned and left. This event dealt Keiichi a considerable blow. The assault was undoubtedly a dark stain on his past. Now, he decided to confess everything to his companions. After listening, Mayan asked him why he suddenly brought this up. Keiichi looked down and said that there shouldn't be secrets between companions. But Mayan spoke frankly. Isn't it normal to have secrets? Everyone has painful memories they don't want others to know. If being a companion means I must share them, then I'd rather not. Besides, Keiichi has already learned his lesson from the police. The key is to learn from the past and look to the future. In short, his companions don't care about Keiichi's past at all. They still want to have fun with him. Keiichi vaguely saw memories from another world. In that world, his suspicions about Rina and Mayan drove him crazy, and he ultimately beat them to death with a baseball bat. Thinking about it now, that needles in the rice balls were actually just spicy peppers. The syringe in Mayan's hand was a marker pen used for a punishment game. No one ever intended to harm him. It was all a tragedy caused by his distrust of his companions. Keiichi deeply regrets this past memory. And now Rina finds herself in a similar situation. Keiichi declares he will save Rina. Tragedy can be avoided. Fate can be defied. We must seize the future ahead. Then Rika exclaims a miracle has occurred. She suddenly speaks in a mature tone. Clearly, what Rika said was a crucial plot foreshadowing. But Mayan and Satoko were completely clueless. Keiichi kept apologizing while hugging Mayan. Mayan's face flushed. She had absolutely no idea what happened. Let's go back to Rina's case. Why were the Sonozaki family and the police both searching for Rina? It was all a misunderstanding. Both the Sonozaki family and the police were just trying to protect Rina. But they didn't trust each other. Especially the police. Every year, the victims of the Cotton Flow Festival were connected to the Sonozaki family. Daisher has long harbored resentment towards this family. Now he finally has the notebook. Of course, he'll seize this opportunity to expose the Sonozaki family's conspiracy. But Mayan's mother produced a suitcase. It was full of notebooks. She said they were all notes found in Satoshi's house. Take a look at what this is. After reading it carefully, the police were stunned. The notes contained various explanations about the worship of the shrine gods. Some said it was caused by souls from the underworld leaking into the real world. Others said it was the work of the underground people. They're all just third-rate fantasy novels anyway, so the Sonozaki family wouldn't kill Satoko for some notebook. But Mayan still says if our family really did it, do you think the body would be found? Daisher couldn't refute that. In short, after discussion, both sides decided to cooperate to find Rina. No one knows where Rina is now. The next day, a strange smell was detected in the school. Suddenly, the teacher was called away by phone. Only students remained in the classroom. Then Rina walked in with a cleaver. Everyone be quiet. It turned out that Rina hadn't received any word from the police. So she took the whole school hostage, forcing the police to search the Sonozaki house. Now, she's becoming increasingly agitated. But based on just a delusional notebook, how could the police possibly search the Sonozaki house? Daisher was afraid of upsetting her, so he first used an excuse to have Rina come out and give him the notes. But to his surprise, Rina didn't show up. She sent her companion, Keiichi, instead. Keiichi, of course, was on the side of the police, but he didn't understand what to do. In his blind spot, Daisher gave him a package. He went to a secluded place to check it. It was a listening device and pepper spray. As long as he could find the right moment to use the spray, he would be able to subdue the dangerous Lena. But when he returned to the classroom, he found Lena pouring gasoline. It turned out Lena had slipped a note to the police into her notebook. "I might die from a slit throat soon, so I want to set 7 tonight as the deadline for negotiations. If there's no result before then, I'll light the gasoline. Meanwhile, I've also set a simple detonator in the school. It will detonate automatically at 7 o'clock. I sincerely hope you can act quickly. To my good partner, Mr. Daisher." Mr. Daisher is stunned. Meanwhile, inside the house, Lena is abusing the hostage. She repeatedly struck Mayan with the back of her knife. Seeing this, Keiichi was helpless. Should he use pepper spray? But in that instant, Rina might light her lighter. Absolutely must not startle her. At that moment, Keiichi's earphones received instructions from the police. They say the police are preparing sleeping pills disguised as an antidote, but even so, it's likely too late to stop the time bomb. Keiichi needs to find the hidden detonator in the whole school within the remaining 15 minutes. How is that even possible? It's impossible. There's not enough time. But at this time, the trap experts, Sadako and Rika, gave Keiichi confidence. There's no time to waste. Let's act now. Keiichi made an excuse about hearing strange noises and went outside to check. As soon as he went out, he frantically searched. He found a wire leading directly to the storage room. He picked up the detonator and looked at it. It's just a normal alarm clock. Then, Rika suddenly knocked Rina down. Keiichi also grabbed the lighter that fell. Rika told Keiichi to hurry and find the device. She would stop Rina. "This time, I'll definitely make sure you catch up," Rika finally said to Keiichi. Outside, Satoko had already deduced the location of the trap. The detonator wasn't inside the classroom. It must be hidden somewhere out of sight. Combining the strange smell she'd noticed in the morning and the missing baseball, Satoko surmised that the ball was hidden inside a rainwater pipe. Gasoline fills the entire pipe. In other words, the detonator is at the pipe entrance on the eaves. "Thanks to you," Keiichi patted Satoko's head. Then he took a baseball bat with Satoshi's name on it. Now Keiichi ran up to the second floor. He smashed the window and climbed onto the roof. The device's countdown showed only a few seconds left. After 7 o'clock, the bomb didn't detonate. Sadoko even untied the hostages. Everyone escaped. Only Keiichi and Rina remained on the rooftop. They disagreed and decided to settle it with a club activity showdown. The victor takes all. Losers will be punished. After saying this, the two fought fiercely with baseball bats and machetes. The police officer on the sidelines was helpless. Because gasoline still remained in the school, they were ordered not to intervene. But the scene before them. Even Daisher seemed mesmerized. It was less a life-or-death struggle, and more a continuation of their unfinished water gun fight. Keiichi said that if he won, Rina would have to wear a maid outfit. Say good morning to yourself in the morning. Take good care of yourself from morning till night every day. And if Rina wins, he'll believe the alien theory. He'll accompany Rina to witness the end of the world. Rina seemed to be captivated by Keiichi's words. She said even winning felt boring. "I want the same punishment as you. No need to become a maid. But you have to be with me from morning till night. Always be nice to me and always keep me happy." The competition has finally come to a conclusion. But what fell wasn't a cleaver, but Rina's tears. How did it come to this? I truly believed in everyone. Why would I do something like this to my companions? Rina came to her senses at that moment. She felt incredibly sorry for what she had done. Keiichi naturally didn't blame her. He hugged Rina tightly, and told her a very simple truth. When you encounter trouble, just talk to your companions and friends. Confiding in each other, helping each other. That way, we won't become the protagonists of a tragedy. The incident finally ended, under the bright moonlight. The story of this happy ending came to a close. But that's just wishful thinking. Trust in peers can indeed prevent tragedies. But are all tragedies caused by mistrust? On the night of the rooftop battle, Rika Furud was murdered. Dr. Irie committed suicide by poisoning. The next day, a terrible disaster struck the village. A sudden eruption of volcanic gas claimed the lives of 2,000 people in the village. The only survivor was Rina Ryugu, who was at the hospital at the time. 22 years later, several police officers returned to Hinamizawa. They found Rina, now an adult. They wanted to investigate what happened that day. But now she no longer believes in any alien legends. That memory is like a nightmare to her. She doesn't know the so-called truth at all. She only remembers a suspicious memory related to Furud Rika. Hinamizawa's destruction. The next world. There are completely unfamiliar pear blossoms. What exactly is going on? We haven't known yet.